Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. In last week's video I took a regular log splitter and converted it for use on my excavator. It worked, but there was room for improvement, so stick around and I will show you what I did.
We can always do better.
So the next issue I want to address on this is that the stand was just not stable.
That didn't work.
Which I had some concerns about that leg up there being offset. But I want something that's out of the way, because I don't want to get it all mangled while I'm working, and it's just not in a very good location. So I got to thinking about what I had and wandering around looking at scraps and odds and ends on the property here, and I remembered I had this square tubing that I can use, and actually one slides into the other. So if it wasn't clear earlier on how I'm going to do this, I'm going to use these two pieces, weld them together, and they will be the foot, and they will just slide into this receiving bracket at the top here. Where it goes in and out. And this will be attached to the splitter itself. And we'll put in some holes, just use a pin to lock it in, but then when I pull the pin, I can remove that leg and everything will be out of the way when I'm using it. So with a little bit of luck, my holes lined up just the way I wanted to. Hold the pin and release. So this is the project that really started the channel. I had been wanting to do this for a couple of years, and I even ran wanted ads on Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist looking for a used log splitter, one that was perhaps broken with a bad pump or motor, since I just needed the top section. But no one contacted me. I even looked at used log splitters, and most of them, actually all of them, were priced higher than what I bought a new one for. So when I talked to my wife about this, and she had been, what's the word I'm looking for when your wife tells you the same thing over and over and over and over again? Encouraging me. Yeah, she had been encouraging me to start a YouTube channel for some time now. And so she said, yeah, go ahead and buy the new one, but you have to start your YouTube channel if you're going to do that. So I pulled the trigger, bought the log splitter, and that's how this all got started. So there's the leg welded on. I didn't want to finish all the way around because there's potential for some water to get in there, and there should be a little gap that will let the moisture out. And now I guess for the first real run, and bam, that should do it.
I love it when a plan comes together.
That's annoying.
So I've always felt that the controls on this excavator are backwards when it comes to the grapple. It's operated by this thumb switch right here, and I expect when it goes in for it to close and out to open. And it's just the opposite of that, and I just seem to get it wrong over and over again because it's not intuitive, especially since the grapple on the tractor is that way, where it opens and closes the way you would expect it to. So there's a number of ways I could fix that problem. Of course, I could spin the cylinder and swap the hoses over. That would be a pretty easy fix, which I thought about doing. But now that I've got the splitter on here, I'm realizing that the hoses would be better suited just to have everything switched over to the opposite side. So what I thought I would do is dig into this switch and see. I'm hoping it's an electrical switch, and it's just a matter of swapping a couple wires. So that's what I'm going to do next. So here's the connector that comes down from the joystick control. There's the toggle switch, and 2 thumb buttons, and then a trigger up here, which is for, I believe that's the high-low speed. And so there's a lot going on in there. There's 7 wires coming out. I'm going to go check out the manual and see if I have any kind of color coding or picture to determine which one of these, or which 2 of these, need swapped around. So after looking into this a little bit deeper, it's just not going to be an easy process of swapping a couple pins around. This unit is all one block. There's no opening it up to get to the switch, and the connector just has too many wires. I don't have a wiring diagram to tell me which wires do what. I tried a little bit of electrical troubleshooting, but with the connector disconnected, all I get is error messages across the screen, so that's not going to work.
Well, that was a waste of time.
So my process with the least resistance is really just to swap these 2 outside hoses. I think I've got plenty of slack in there. I can rearrange them and just do a mechanical change. Should be pretty simple, so I'm going to give that a try. When I first got the excavator, I noticed this was an issue, and I thought it'd be an easy problem to fix, that I could just go into the menu on the excavator's control panel and toggle the direction somehow. But after searching around in the manual, in the menu screen, and on the internet, I found that there just was no way to do this. So that's something I had been wanting to fix since I got this machine about 3 years ago. I did pick it up at an auction. Actually blew a hose the very first day. One of the hoses, I think, is the one that went through the stick, which I had seen that it was pretty badly deteriorated when I bought it. It's the one with the wrap on it that's new, kind of stands out there. But that is going to be a big improvement. Everything will work the way it should, direction-wise, with the thumb control. And what you couldn't see is, these hoses, they come through as a bundle. And then it's just a matter of arranging them so that they go up and give you the best positioning to attach to this block of connectors. And what holds it on is this plate down here. And it just, once you get them all laid down flat, you put the plate on, it clamps everything into place. So what I picked up were a couple 90-degree elbows, because I just don't like how these hoses kind of shoot out the front. I want to angle them back. Ideally, I would have the attachments be on the back side of the cylinder, but that just doesn't work because of the way they're angled, the way they had put the fittings on the cylinder itself. So turning it 180 degrees, there's no access to those fittings. And so by doing this, I just hope to get everything protected, make it neat and clean, and be one step closer to having this thing done. Alright, you may have noticed when I was using this that it had way too much flex and play in it. Just a lot of extra motion. And to take that out, I'm just going to put a couple scraps of flat bar in this gap, and it will solve the problem. So I got those little spacers in there to take up the slack. They didn't weld real great, but they'll do the trick. And I'm going to give it a shot of paint and move on to the next thing. And this might be the final step.
Yeah, right.
I want to be able to carry this with a strap to my work sites using the bucket, because I'll need the bucket to move logs around, and then I can switch to this to split them, and you just need to be able to bring them both at the same time. And I've got this hook that's in a pretty good spot, the bottom being down there, and I think I'm just going to put this scrap of square tube that I have right here, so I can put a strap around it and just use it to transport it where I need it to go.
It's not what I wanted.
So I spent a little more time with these rounds and made them even smaller than I had the first time around in my first test, and that should just make it that much easier for me to manage these and get them onto the smaller splitter. But this is going to be a game changer. There's big pieces that I have just avoided using because they're too large to maneuver, and with this splitter, breaking them down into smaller pieces, it just gives me that much more wood that I can use. So I definitely need to work on my technique though, because I'm getting used to these hoses, they just hang down too low. That's the one major change I'd like to make, but rotating them 180 degrees just does not clear the main portion of the splitter, so that's not going to work. I did take a break, grab a bungee and kind of pull them up out of the way, but I did manage to bend this leg a little bit, which is alright, better than tearing off a hose, and overall things are working out well.
Stay positive, stay positive.
So off camera, I went ahead and split and stacked those 3 rounds, and since I had done a better job of breaking them into smaller pieces with the excavator, that actually was a lot easier, went pretty quickly. I did the math again on this one, and I came up with 37.6 cubic feet, which comes out to 29% of a cord, so almost pushing a third of a cord in those 3 rounds. Again, more than a week's worth of wood. I don't know that I spent more than an hour or so on the work of processing these, but of course that didn't include bringing the log in originally. Some of the wood isn't usable. The bark came off, and so there's a fair amount over there that'll go in the burn pile, but very good yield. Again, more than a week's worth of heat sitting right here. So I thought I was done with this project, but have some issues I want to revisit and just make some improvements. The first one is these hoses, hanging down, which you might have seen in the previous video. That's just way too dangerous. I know I'm going to hook them on something eventually, so I need to fix it. And turning this, because of the way they have put the mounting bracket, now I pulled the pin here and I've got it turned 180 degrees. And it looks like it's going to clear everything. I just need to take a little bit out of this corner here, and maybe, to be safe, a little bit off of the corner of the slide there. And you'll see what I mean. I'll video this as I go along and just make some clearance. And then the hoses will be pointing back and up towards the excavator and be completely out of the way, which will be better for my view and much safer for the hoses. I'm going to start out just by marking the area that I need to take out. I don't necessarily like taking out this part of the structure, but I really don't see that it's doing a whole lot, overall for the strength of it. I think I'm going to be able to take out a little section and give me the clearance I want. I want to make sure I've got plenty of clearance too for this slider, so I want to take off just this back corner right here. Okay, so I really don't think that affected the structure that much. Just making that little divot in there. Not the cleanest grind in the world, but a little bit of paint and it'll look smooth. It's actually looking really good. I need to take this hose fitting off and put that in straight before I can make it work. Right now that 90 is causing me some grief because of the way it's turned. It doesn't let me mount the whole thing back together like I want to, so remove that fitting real quick. Hopefully everybody can see that. That notch gives plenty of room. I do have the pin back in place, so this is the operating position. And there's room for some flex in that. I do still want to take off the corner of that flange, and I'll show you what I mean next. So this back corner right here was really close to that fitting. I don't think it's that crucial. If I shorten it an inch or so, I'm just going to take a corner off and make sure there's enough clearance.
We have clearance, Clarence.
I think that piece might be hardened a little bit. That did not cut like the cheap Chinesium on the side. And yeah, since it is all one piece, they probably did use some hardened steel for that, for the moving parts. But now just to give it a little touch of paint and put it back together. But I guess first, well, we know that's going to fit. Let's give it some paint, put it back together, or let that dry and put it back together. All right, well, that's got good clearance all the way around. that should do it. I got good spacing all around the hoses. I like the angle that they're going to be pointing up and towards the cab on the excavator. Definitely it'll stop the dangling problem. Now the second issue that I want to fix is this stand. Having it be permanently on there, you can see I bent it already over here at the foot. So I'm going to remove that and do the same thing I did on the other end. Put a removable stand so I can just pop the whole thing off and not have anything be in the way when I'm splitting wood. And the third thing I want to change is the attachments I use when I'm hauling it around with straps. So I had welded this on and used another hook. They're just not in a good location. So I'm going to take that one off, get this thing all cleaned up, and then start working on fixing those two issues. So all that's left to do is put a few holes in these to lock them together. I found a pin that same size as the others so they can be interchangeable. And for those of you that have a 3D printer, they can be really handy. So this I just print it out real quick, helps me find the center. So I hopefully get these holes aligned on the top and bottom. And if I can get it to do it, I'll grab a mark. Do the same thing on the other side. Well, that's right on the money. And there we go. Stand section is done.
Isn't it wonderful?
So I've been looking at this so I can attach a couple lift points so I can carry this around with the strap using the bucket. And I can carry it over to where I'm splitting wood, set this down, arrange my wood with the bucket, and then have this handy where I can switch out and attach this and then start splitting. I'm going to try a couple points here, just drilling some holes, because I use these little snap connector lifting ring things, and they actually do a great job. They're pretty handy. I have quite a few of them, and I'm going to give that a try. I think by having the lift point up higher, it's going to make it more stable when I'm bringing it around, and I'm really not concerned with the strength of this. I think it's going to be more than enough on this side, and then we'll tackle the other side. Well, that was unexpected. My sawhorse just collapsed, so that tells you how heavy this thing is. Now these were just real cheap sawhorses. I thought they were rated for more than enough weight though to handle this, but it just cracked right down the middle. That is just an MDF piece, which I figured I'd have to replace one day anyway with some actual solid wood, so I can beef these up. But that could have been disastrous. Actually pretty fortunate, since the foot was on the other end there. It just hit the ground and everything's fine. Yeah, it's going to be another project now, fixing the sawhorses. See if that will work. I might be down a little far. No, that's a perfect connection. That's one of the smaller rings that I use. Now, getting this thing untangled from the sawhorses is going to be a pain. Let's see what gave way, which, you know, I knew these would be a weak point when I bought them and had planned on replacing these sections anyway, but that's just, you know, cheap MDF. And using them outdoors, they probably absorbed some moisture that weakened them. So just be aware. Here's the other half. And they just pretty much split down the middle. So it's very difficult to work on this now that it's collapsed in the sawhorses. So there is a pretty convenient hook spot that was existing right here, and I'm going to go get little Johnny and we will just lift it off of there, because that's definitely not something I can move on my own. I didn't even know if a guy on each end could lift it. That's a heavy chunk of metal. So I was hoping that might work as a lifting point, but it's just too far off to the side and doesn't let it be carried, you know, level. Okay, so I think my easiest solution is just going to be to put a hole that I can attach to right here. So with the down end, you know, operating condition, those hoses are just in a much better spot. I only see one real issue, and that is right here, where it can kind of rub and bind. It actually doesn't seem too bad. There is some clearance there. I'm going to think about putting a 90 on that, but this is much improved. So looking at that again, with the hose in place, the clearance is just fine. I don't think a 90 would do me much good. I probably could have stuck with the original hoses if I'd have turned this in the first place, and they might have been fine, but I've got these with a little extra room. It gives me more of a margin for error, and once they're up and connected, actually didn't connect them in now, but once I hold them into place, you know, there's quite a bit of hose, there we go, dangling down. So I think I may still bungee them up out of the way, but at least they won't be down catching on things and sticking out the front. And when I take the feet off, it's going to give me plenty of clearance and safety margin to go around and split the big firewood that I want to use this for. It's super tight on the connector. Just a little bit of wiggle, which is fine. Don't want it too tight, causing damage. And this project has turned out very well. It took me a lot longer than I expected, with a few hiccups along the way, but at this point I'm very happy, and this is going to probably get used for years to come and save my back from a lot of lifting.
I like it a lot.
Now with those lift points, that is perfect. It's going to sit down real easy right on the feet. Everything is going to make it that much easier to move it around, connect and disconnect.
Yeah, that really hurt.
So I got some company today. These guys show up about every day. They roam through here. There were, I think, 6 earlier. There's a young guy with some heavy fur from the winter. Got another one hiding back there. They only let me get so close, and I think Mom is the one back there in the shadows off the edge of the fence. They really seem to like our property in particular. We've got water and good grass, lots for them to eat, and nobody shoots at them. Wood piles like these are exactly why I built this splitter. These pieces are just too big to move by hand. Oh, yeah, this pile's been here for a little over 3 years and would be nothing I would want to tackle and try to split using a regular wood splitter where I have to lift the rounds onto the table. So this stuff will be its first real workout of what I wanted to do with it. This is oak, harder to split, heavier, and just more difficult to work with than the fir that we've tested it with so far. So all of these pieces are from a tree that essentially split in half during the ice storm of 2021, and it was right in the middle of our backyard. Give you an idea, this is, I think, kind of down by the base where it broke, and I'm getting a measurement of 34-35 inches. There's a really good cross section of where it split, and that is, yeah, coming up on over 40 inches. What we got there, 44, and then where it narrows out, 33. So substantial pieces of wood, and there's a lot of firewood in there, so I didn't necessarily want to waste it. It'd take forever to burn in a burn pile being this size. Well, I can't complain too much about how that saw was cutting. I'll have to look at the timestamp here, but it says 13 minutes on my phone to, cut all of those rounds. That was some pretty big wood. Went through it very nicely. And oak definitely takes longer to cut through than the fir. Harder, denser, heavier. But we sure like it for firewood. So I think we ended up with 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 rounds. And now for the fun part, to try out the splitter. Alright, finally got that connected. That was a royal pain. There was a lot of pressure in those lines, I think from the sun coming out, and it just gave me a lot of trouble getting them connected. I think we're going to have to make one of those clamps that I've seen for hydraulic couplers. But now we can get back to work and see how this does on oak. So that was, I guess, 55 minutes, at least 55 minutes of filming. A lot of carnage. Did a pretty nice job. I think nearly all of these I will be able to manage by hand from here. I think the next step is to bring the splitter over and split and stack, and if there's any that are too big, I'll just put them in a good position to bring the excavator over and make them even smaller. But yeah, even on that oak, there were a few with some knots and some real tough spots. These were not ideal pieces for making into firewood. Any of the straight grain stuff just split like butter, but a lot of these with knots and branches and, you know, just all kinds of weird stuff going on, it struggled a little bit, but I'm going to say only 3 or 4 really gave it a problem. I'm 6'5", and it's just a lot more comfortable for me to use the splitter if I raise it up a little bit. So a progress report. I have split and stacked everything that I could move by hand so far. I've gotten 2 full racks over there, and then this one is probably 2/3 or more of the way full. I'm sure I'll finish it out with what's left, and these are the pieces that I'm not able to lift that will need a little more splitting. So what have I got there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 with that big one right there. So I wanted to give a total of how much wood was in those rounds that we just split. And so I got it all split and stacked. I'm basically done with all of that. Again, there was quite a bit of waste because of the rot and just some pieces that had knots and funky grain that was just not worth messing with any further. That'll go in a burn pile. Might end up in a fire pit over the summer. But the stuff that I wanted to count is over here. So I got 3 full racks, and then this rack I had partially filled before with the fir, and so from, you know, about here up there was a little bit. I thought the rest would fit in that rack and that would be good, but it didn't quite fit. I couldn't stuff it in there, so I got a little bit of a scrap over here and started another rack for next time. And the total came out to 101.8 cubic feet, which is right at 80% of a cord, 0.8 of a cord that was in that wood. So that pretty much wraps it up for that project and what I wanted to accomplish here. I've just got some cleanup to do, and I've got a new toy to use for the bigger wood that I'm going to enjoy. And this wood will just sit here for the summer. I may move it to a sunnier spot if I get a chance, but for now it's just going to sit here and dry until the fall. At that point, before the first rains of the fall, I either cover it or bring it inside. And, you know, sitting right here is over a month's worth of firewood for us. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If this is the kind of content you enjoy, please subscribe to the channel, give it a like if you would. And this channel is going to be about just the things that I do every day living on a small property here in northwestern Oregon.